Today we're honored to welcome Alon Laniado to the show today. I'm very excited to have him on and discuss all his amazing knowledge when it comes to weight loss, and he helps many people take control of their overall wellness, right? Because again, it's not just about losing weight, it's about taking control of your health. And once you get that down, weight loss is kind of a byproduct of that, right? And he has a very simple approach because many people, we focus on so many different fancy things that are complex. But if you want long-term sustainable results, this man knows exactly what to do. So I'm very happy to have him on today. How are you?
Good, you.
I'm doing great. Yeah, so very curious to hear your story, how you got to wellness, weight loss, and how you're being of service today.
Sure. So I've been a serial entrepreneur, but I got into weight loss because at one point in my life, I had a lot of stress and I gained 20 pounds and I wasn't happy about that. And I've managed to succeed in actually losing it. But in that journey, that took about like 6 months or so, I discovered two key things. One is that I was doing very basic mistakes. Like my father would point that out to me. I would like drink an energy drink just for 40 minutes of tennis. You don't need those calories. You don't need that energy. Energy drinks can be useful for much longer things. Anyways, big, small mistakes that I was doing. And the second part that was really fundamental is that what really helped me out is that my father said, right, send me a picture of your scale every morning. And I had to literally send him a picture of my scale every morning. And all I'll get from him is thumbs up, thumbs down. And it was pretty crazy because that little element of human accountability really kept me going and look for solution. And ultimately, when I did look for solution, I'm like, wait, this is quite much more straightforward than I thought. There's a few things to do, a few things not to do, but it took me a while to discover them as I was going along. And so as a result of that, I sort of decided, wait, can we provide some form of support to people where A, the simple things that they need to do is put in place very clearly to them, and B, they get the support to actually put them in place, because doing it alone is not easy for most people. And
Awesome, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So it sounds like you kind of got into this and you're making like, as you mentioned, these big, small mistakes, right? All these things start to add up, right? And they kind of affect our results in our lives. So it's important to be aware of these things.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. So when it comes to weight loss, what are some common misconceptions that a lot of people are kind of undergoing when it comes to their own process?
The most important one is people, first of all, approach it from, oh, I need to lose weight, so I should clearly feel hungry, right? That's a sign that I'm doing things right. Meaning, starving yourself, limiting your calories, intermittent fasting. And I'm not saying all of that is wrong, but in fact, if that's all you do, meaning take an approach of limiting your calorie, you will probably fail. Why? Because first, it's not very sustainable. Say, all you do is eat like soup all day and a little few things. There's a point at which you'll just get hungry and you'll drop it. That's why people yo-yo diet. They see success for like 1 or 2 weeks. Oh my God, it's working. And then at some point it's like, oh my God, I missed my life. and so, and then suddenly it does. But then there's something else going on, which is emerging research, which is showing that when you try to lose weight by being hungry and just lowering your calorie deficit, what happens is that your body thinks that it's in starvation mode. Like, our Asians, it's like, oh my God, this body is starving. What I need to do is I'm starting to drop the metabolism, meaning the number of calories I burn, and I'm going to increase the appetite of that person because otherwise they're going to die. And basically what happens is that's why we start getting hungry again when we take that approach. And effectively, our body prevents us from losing the weight when we take that approach. Therefore, there is a better way to do it, which is actually to focus on fullness. I actually wrote a book called Focus on Fullness, and we can talk obviously about the specifics, but I guess the point here is, yes, you need to limit the quantities of what you eat, but equally important is what is it that you eat that makes it sustainable in order to stay at a certain level of calorie deficit, which we'll get into a moment, of course. That's, I think, the number one big mistake people do. I will list maybe one or two other ones, which is that people think that certain foods they eat are healthy, but in fact don't help them for weight loss. Let me give you a couple of examples. Everybody likes to snack on nuts and have avocado because they go like, well, these are healthy fats. So people are trying to sort of eat these things. But when you eat like that much of nuts, right? Like a fist worth of nuts, that's like 250 calories right there, okay? So yes, the proteins in the nuts will keep you full. And again, we'll talk about this a bit later in terms of what to do. But there's so much calories in it that there's almost no way you're gonna end up losing weight because you're just taking too many calories. Another very good example of that is the salad. People have this perfect salad and then start pouring a lot of healthy oil in it, right? It's like, this is healthy. But that oil, 4 tablespoons of sort of oil is 500 calories. This is destroying any effort you do across your whole day to stay tight. So people sort of, 2 things therefore. One is they trying to starve yourself doesn't work. And second one is people often don't quite know what is the areas they need to focus on to make it work.
God, that makes sense, man. Thank you for sharing that. So it sounds like our bodies have a set point, right? And when it comes to weight loss, basically, as you mentioned, like we start to starve ourselves, but our body doesn't like that, right? So a lot of times when we go back to our normal diet, we not only gain the weight back, but we gain even more weight.
Completely. I think you've put it very nicely. The emerging research is exactly on set point. So I'm starting at my weight level now, whatever that level is, 200 pounds. If I'm trying to starve myself, my body says, hey, this person is going way too low, below 200 pounds. This person is not eating the type of things that I think are the type of things they should be eating to be healthy. So I will make sure that even if now they went to 190 pounds, I'll bring them back to 200 pounds. How do I do that? I start dropping my metabolism, like I said before, basically dropping the calorie burn. So stopping effectively certain parts of your body to use the energy, which is kind of what burns effectively the calorie. And the second part is I'll make that appetite go up. And then people start eating, come back to their set point, and as you said, may even go above their set point. Yeah. And there's of course a way to avoid all of that, right? By sending the right signals to your brain. But we can talk
absolutely. And you're kind of mentioning like accountability in a sense, like with the scale. Now, what's your take on the scale? Is that something that we should be using, or is it just not necessarily something we should be focused on too much?
The scale. So I think people should use the scale. I think in 2 ways. The first is it sets a very clear goal, especially if you are overweight or obese. Yeah, it's the easiest way around nowadays to know whether you're progressing. Okay, ultimately the biomarker that matters most is not strictly speaking weight. It's the amount of fat you got, and within fat the amount of visceral fat you got, and basically the amount of visceral fat you got is a function of how much sugar you eat and how much processed food you eat, etc. Problem is, you don't have a machine of fat and visceral fat at home, and most of the machines at the gym are not that accurate. The way to find out is a DEXA, for example, machine. But that's like 50 bucks a session where you'll find that out. You can do that once in a while, but it's not very accessible or affordable to most people. Therefore, weight is a good measure as long as you lose the weight in the right way. Meaning, if you do things like eating the right amount of protein, doing strength training on the side, and you are keeping your lean mass, if you are losing the weight, it probably means you are effectively losing the fat, okay? So it's a good enough proxy as long as you do it in the right way. The second reason why scale is very important, and we're gonna maybe talk about that later in terms of the protocol, studies demonstrate that if you weight yourself a lot, it's a very important motivator to keep you in check. Because it's a bit like everything. Think about your bank account, right? If you don't check your bank account, then suddenly you start spending because you don't sort of realize how much there is left. You kind of are in denial of it, right? Same thing with weight. But if you start weighing yourself, and study shows it, weighing yourself once a day or once every other day has a mechanism to keep you in check about weight. I'm not going to screw up today. Either my weight is going back up, so I need to do something about it, or the opposite. My weight is going down. Let's keep on doing it. I'm getting these reinforcements. So yes, weight for me is very important in 2 ways. Like I said, 1, it's a very good proxy of whether you're going in the right direction, and 2, it's a very good motivator.
100%. What's your take on BMI and hip to waist ratio?
Both of them are effectively, BMI, first of all, is effectively a measure of your weight against your height, right? It's a very broad measure. So it won't help you much in terms of doing your day-to-day progress. The way it helps you, I think, is day one, you hear, oh my God, I'm technically obese, which is a BMI over 30, or oh my God, I'm technically overweight, which is BMI over 25. So it's like maybe a wake-up call, so to speak. But after that, even though you lose weight, you'll stay within your BMI range for a long time, because what is BMI is effectively your weight and your height. So it's ultimately your weight, but it's just the ranges of the BMI. You stay obese for a long time until you start losing your weight. So you could be BMI obese 35, then 34, but you're still obese, right? So it's not very motivating to know, oh, I'm slightly less obese. So it's better to look at the weight almost after you've looked at the BMI first time. Waist to hip ratio, very good, because it's starting to get closer to the fat. That's even better. So because obviously it's kind of looking at the belly fat and stuff like that, a little bit more accurate than the weight. Ideally, you do both, your weight and your waist ratio, as you said. Problem is, I'm trying to be practical. Most people don't like to have a measure tape. They don't measure correctly, so you end up having the wrong maybe signals. That's why it's probably better to still focus on your weight. If you're good, you do the waist ratio, or you just look at your pants and you go like, hey, am I fitting better in my pants? That's pretty much doing what the waist ratio is doing. I'm, again, trying to be very practical about it in terms of making sure people can actually implement those measures.
Yeah, 100%. And you're mentioning calories. Well, because we eat these things, but sometimes we're eating too much of these things. Like we're eating too many calories, and it can be potential hindrances in our weight loss, right? So it's kind of like taking an inventory of these things. Just becoming aware can actually be an aid as well, as kind of what you were saying.
Completely. At the end of the day, whether we like it or not, losing weight is about burning more calories than you are sort of taking in, okay? Whether you like it or not. So nothing is new there. The only thing that is new is how you're going to go about it. Okay. Yep. And yes, one of the things is definitely that people have so many hidden calories in their everyday life, especially when they rely on outside food. You go to a restaurant, you ask them a salad, that salad has so much oil, or you go to a chicken, that fried chicken has so much sort of fats in them that it's almost impossible to stay within that calorie limit. So there's a few things that you can do to stay within that calorie limit and lose the weight, for sure. By the way, one of them is to lower the kind of excess calories, but the other one is to actually eat the type of things that keeps you full in order to prevent overeating later in the day, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, so like satiety, right? Making sure that you're satiated with the things that you're eating.
Exactly, and that brings kind of the formula in a way that kind of guides kind of the work I've been doing. And of course, nothing new here. Where I think I've tried to add some value is the how to do it. But if we had to now bring home like the formula that you need to follow, it will be like that. It will be, you will likely lose weight if you stay within your calorie limit, okay, which we can calculate. But just to give a feeling, for guys, for men, it's like 1,800 calories a day to 2,000 calories. Depends on your height, age, and exercise, etc. But that's roughly where most people end up, 2,000 calories, 1,800 to 2,000 calories. Women, it's more like 1,400 to 1,600 calories. So you want to keep your foods at that level. That's objective one. And the second objective is you want to have a minimum number of proteins and fiber, which are your satiety foods. And there is a target that you need to reach there. So if you have enough protein-rich foods and fiber-rich foods, they will keep you full and make it more likely that you don't end up overeating in the day. And these foods are lean, so you can have them and stay within that calorie limit. Protein-rich foods, whether it's chicken, fish, all the proteins we know, and people are quite familiar with them, they send a signal to your brain oh, I had enough. And that's that signal that prevents your brain, by the way, if you remember earlier in our conversation, to say, oh my God, this person is dying, you know? You send the signal, no, this person is doing right. You know, they're not eating their calories, but they're eating the right things that will keep them alive. So that's protein. Fiber, think foods like lentils, broccoli, you know, all the fiber-rich vegetables, grains, they have fiber. And what fiber does, it's kind of pieces of strings almost that, you know, at least that's kind of one type of fiber that takes a long time to digest. So when you have them, it's going to take a while until you eat, okay? So if you have enough protein and you have enough fiber, chances are you're not going to start over snacking in the day, and therefore you can stay within that calorie maximum amount that we set. If you don't have enough protein or fiber, which is the case for most people, you know, because they go like, oh my God, I'm going to be a warrior. I'm going to just have soup for lunch, right? No proteins, no fiber. So, you know, that works. What happens at 3, 4 o'clock? Boom, you know, they start going nuts on the snacks at the office, etc. And suddenly they take 1,000 calories out of these snacks, as opposed to having had that lunch and invested 500 calories in the protein-rich and fiber-rich lunch, which would have prevented them from eating those snacks at 4 o'clock. And net, you only have 500 calories, right? Instead of that 1,000 calories of the other stuff. And that keeps you full until dinner. You do the same at dinner, and you end up kind of in your calorie limit. Week on week, you do that. If you create a deficit of 500 calories, which is the target that I told you, meaning, say you're a man, 1,800 calories, you do that every day, most of the days. Some days you can go up, you know, Friday night, and some days you will go down. You will lose a pound a week on average.
Absolutely. So protein and fiber are the more satiating foods.
Yeah.
Got it. And the problem is, like, a lot of us, we're eating empty calories, right? We're eating these ultra processed foods. We're eating a lot of calories, but we're not setting that signal to our brain, right? Because there's no nutrients in there. Like, a lot of us, we're overfed, but undernourished, right? We're eating these things that are just kind of like messing with our biology. We're not actually doing anything to lose weight, in a sense.
Completely. That's exactly what's going on. And I think it's to do with the fact that most people are aware of proteins. Oh, I need proteins, it's good, you know. They've heard that before, let's put it like that, but they completely underestimate how much protein they need to have. So for example, when they go for a Subway sandwich, they go like, oh, look, there's a piece of turkey in here. I've got my protein right. The problem is that piece of turkey, it's like 12 grams, yeah? But really, for your lunch, you need like 30, 40 grams to really stay full. So people probably have that protein, but underestimate it. Second, fiber, most people pretty much don't know about it, right? So they completely undershoot on their fiber. And as you said, instead they've got these processed foods, you know, whether it's the carbs that are low in fiber because the fiber has been taken out, which is the case of bread, or all these other processed fatty foods, they are just empty calories. And so what happens in the day, you have a lot of empty calories and not enough of the stuff you should be eating.
100%. So let's get into specifics. Like, what do you recommend people eat in terms of weight loss and eating real food? Like, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
On a day-to-day basis, what we've seen work well for people is let's sort of structure the day, right? You want to be able to structure your day, ideally if you can, under 3 core meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 1 or 2 snacks. If your meals are going to keep you full, which we're going to talk in a moment, you probably won't need more than 1 or 2 snacks. That is a very good practice because if you start eating too many times of the day, you lose track, right? It's much easier to keep a set amount of meals, okay? For most days, you know, sometimes it's not going to be. So let's talk about them. You start on breakfast, right? And again, let's be clear, Anthony, our goal here is to add enough proteins, okay? And enough fiber within a set amount of calories, okay? So in the morning, you know, there's not like a million choices, right? For your proteins, you can have eggs. Try to maximize the egg whites. You can have sides like salmon or turkey ham or even turkey bacon, by the way, which is very lean in protein, cottage cheese, yogurt, oats, and stuff like that. These are your types of breakfast. All of them, one way or another, could get you to say 20 or 30 grams of protein and a bit of fiber, and that will be enough to keep you full till lunch. So job done, right? And that will avoid like at 10 o'clock going, oh my God, I'm starving, you know? And then, you know, good. You get to lunch And your lunch, which by the way is very similar to dinner, so I'm going to talk about lunch now, which applies to dinner. You want to have more like 40 grams of proteins. So really think any meat, any fish, will do it. Like a third of your plate almost needs to be that protein. Chicken, turkey, pork, fish. For vegetarian people, that will include sort of beans, grains, a little bit more of that, tofu, tempeh. So, any sort of person or cuisine could do that. A third of that. Then you add some fibers. The fibers of your plate will be either a fist of grains or whole grains, or a fist of beans or lentils, or green leafy vegetables, like that much. That's the other part of your plate. And then the rest of the plate will be like vegetables. That will keep you full until snack time. Snack time, 4 o'clock, you have a boost of protein because you need it to get to the target. That could include whey powder in water. That's for the very motivated of us. But then you could also have, again, yogurt, cottage cheese, all the ones we spoke before. Beef jerky is a very good one as well, super tasty. There's also some really good protein shakes today that have low added sugar. So that's your snack fix for the proteins. And then you get another 20 grams. Finally, at dinner, you do the same thing as lunch. That will be a good sort of day to go by to get you the proteins and fiber.
Awesome. Sounds great. So a lot of this sounds like we're eating real food here, not ultra-processed food.
Yeah. Stuff that really has like maximum, 5 items in your ingredients list in the back of the ingredients.
Exactly. I mean, what is the problem when we start to eat all these ultra-processed foods? Like, why is that not an approach that is sustainable?
Well, there's 2 parts to it. There's the weight loss part of it, which is that, as I said, it has insufficient proteins and fiber. So that meal and too much calories from fats, added sugar, or other stuff. So what is that meal going to do to you, right? So say, I don't know, not to pick on any specific food, but say I eat processed meat, with a bit of whatever, bread and stuff like that. What happens is, that's lunch, right? What happens is I'm only getting 15 grams of protein, 0 grams of fiber usually, or very little, but I still, instead of needing only like 500 grams, say, of calories of a lunch, I'm suddenly at a lunch of 1,000 calories with very little protein and fiber. What happens 2 hours later? I'm having another meal. So I'm actually having 2 meals instead of 1, so to speak, at many, many more calories. That's why I don't lose weight. That's problem number 1 with the processed food. Problem number 2, of course, is that there is a lot of health-related reasons where processed food is more problematic. For example, a lot of unhealthy fats in them, a lot of added sugar. They come with their own, it's outside the scope of our discussion, but they come with their own problems that effectively will lower your health scores in life in terms of cardiovascular risk, etc.
100%. And it sounds like vegetables, those are great for satiety as well.
Yeah, because of the fiber.
Awesome. So you also talk about these weight loss medications that are kind of like super popular these days. So can you get into that and some potential problems that we can come across with these as well?
Yeah. So right now, the main popular one, of course, in the last few years, and it's exploding, is the GLP-1 medication. Think Wegovy, think Ozempic, Mounjaro, etc. So what they do effectively, it's very important. You inject them, and they suppress your appetite. Okay. Because they suppress your appetite, you are less hungry. Because you're less hungry, you reach your deficit. Because you reach your deficit, you lose weight. That's effectively, in simple terms, how they work, okay? And it's important to understand where are their limitations, okay? There is 3, so we work a lot with people that use them, and they are very, very effective for somebody who starts off on a very high weight. Think someone who's obese or very obese. They've got so many pounds and fats to lose that it's almost demotivating to start just on making lifestyle changes and hope to change 1 pound a week. When you've got like 60, 70 or 100 pounds to lose, it's tough, right? These drugs get you results quite quick to lose quite a bit of that weight. okay? Tens of pounds early on, and that motivates you to start, taking care of your life. So in that way, it's actually very helpful, okay? But these are the three things that are to watch out for. The first is that if you don't pay attention to what you eat, a lot of the weight you lose is not fat, is muscle. And losing muscle is not great. It's not healthy for many reasons, okay? And you don't also look good. So many people, when they look super skinny like that, is because their muscles is gone. So many people sort of that start our program, you go like, well, I've taken GLP-1 drugs, I've lost weight, which was fine, but now where did my chest go? I look like a dead body, right? So how do you prevent that? You need to eat protein. Protein is what preserves your lean mass. And you need to do strength training, which we can get to in a second. But on the protein side, that's what you need to do. The second issue with only taking weight loss drugs is that you may plateau at some point, like the drug itself may not be enough to continue. So you've lost 20 pounds and suddenly you don't lose pounds anymore. That's because people start, their appetite starts going up, they start eating carbs again, because they've not stopped sort of eating the bad foods, they've just limited how much they eat them, if that makes sense. But suddenly they get hungry again and start eating those bad foods again, and so they start gaining weight. So that's problem number 2. And problem number 3, and of course, healthy nutrition will help prevent that, right? Because if you do it together, you'll start learning gradually to eat the right foods and break those plateaus. And problem number 3 is, say you want to stop those medications. What will happen? The reverse of what we spoke earlier on. Your appetite will go up, you'll start eating more, and you'll regain the weight. That's why studies shows that most people, when they stop the medication, they regain the weight, right? So unless you address the fundamental problem of what you eat to stay within the calorie limit, eat the right protein to keep your lean mass, the problems are not going away. They are almost hidden under the carpet as long as you take the drug. And so the right thing to do is to combine those drugs with lifestyle changes.
God, that makes sense. And you mentioned muscle. Like, muscle is so important to have because it's kind of like our fat-burning machinery in a sense.
Completely. A big part of why you burn calories in the day is how much lean mass have you got. And if you lose your lean mass, you'll burn less calories over time, which is often an issue for also as you grow older and you start losing your muscles. But you kept on eating like you were 20, suddenly you get like this huge belly or something. That's because you lost a lot of muscle, and so and you burn less calories. And that's what happened when you're on GLP-1 drugs, yeah?
Definitely. And you mentioned a lot of people who set out to lose weight, they end up gaining it back. And I know you alluded to this a little bit, but what are some potential reasons why that happens? Like, why is it so hard for people to, maintain this weight loss?
Because the approach taken is often like trying to get one big win, but the approach is unsustainable. For example, I go like, oh my God, it's summer, I've got 3 months, I'm going on a crash diet. So I'm juicing my way through, the next few months, or I'm this. Great. But you can't do that for life. I like food, you like food, most people like good food, right? So forever restricting yourself is just not sustainable. Plus what we spoke about, the set weight problem where, your body brings you back. So that's often one people have yo-yo dieting. Something works for a few weeks, maybe a few months, and then it comes back because it's unsustainable what they do. As opposed to take an approach where you say, wait, why not approach nutrition as a way of life? All these foods we were talking about, lentils, chicken, etc., they're super tasty. You can enjoy extremely tasty food within a calorie range and that are protein rich. I don't think any of the foods I told you, Anthony, so far is like, oh my God, this is terrible food, right? Everybody likes eggs, everybody likes turkey bacon, beef jerky. There's just a way to do it. And if you do it that way, it addresses the problem of sustainability because this is just becoming a way of life. So it's not like, oh, this worked Monday to Wednesday when I'm cooking at home, but it doesn't work anymore when I'm on travel or when I'm on the office, right? No, this is just the way you live. Like anything else. And that's what makes it sustainable. And that's why also when we work with people, over 90% after they stop the program, they keep the weight they lost because they don't change the habit anymore. It becomes a habit.
Yeah, 100%. Just like you said, it just like it becomes who you are and just a new way that you live, right? And you enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah, exactly right. You enjoy it a
Like,
lot.
yeah, because a lot of people like along the lines of that, we just tend to focus on calories, which of course, yes, but they don't focus on the real food part, right? But as you mentioned before, you need both.
Exactly right. The only challenge is that it takes a little bit of organization, a bit like learning a new language. Unfortunately, it takes a little bit of organization to organize your life around that. And that's the part I've spent most of my time, which is what are those protocols? Now we know what to do, hit your protein, hit your fiber within a calorie target. The real challenge is, well, how do I make that happen every day in my life until it becomes a habit? That is that gap of execution that I've seen people struggle most with, and where I've spent most of my time trying to think of key things people could do every day to make more likely that it happens, which I'm very happy to talk about.
Yeah, 100%. Let's do that actually. Like, why? Like, how do we make it more sustainable and actually, become a lifestyle?
Sure. So the first part is like that. I think I after seeing a lot of people and analyzing a lot of behaviors, I think there's like 7 things that are both evidence-backed and practical that makes it more likely people will hit their calorie targets, protein and fiber targets, okay? Number 1, I think we spoke about that one. Limit your meals. Have a structure around your day, like anything else in life. 3 core meal, 1 or 2 snacks, and make them count. If you make them count, you'll probably eat less afterwards. By the way, some days it's not going to happen that way. We can come back to that. But if you have a fight with your boss or something, yeah, you'll be hungry and you'll start eating. Sure, but I'm saying on most regular days, structure your day around 3 core meals, 1 or 2 snacks. Much easier to them. Second, know your targets. What are my calorie targets? What are my protein targets? What are my fiber targets? Yeah, and there's a very easy way to know it nowadays, okay? So we spoke about the calorie targets of most people. For most guys, the protein targets will be around 160 grams of protein and fiber over 30 to 35 grams. If you don't know your targets, you don't know what to look forward to, like anything in life, right? Know your targets. And then you can break those targets into the meals. I know that my breakfast needs to be around 300 calories and around 20 grams of protein. Same for lunch, same for day. Once you break that down that way, it's much easier to think, okay, am I hitting those targets or am I not hitting those targets? Otherwise, you leave it to chance. Okay, so know your targets. Third, track the portion. Okay, track your food. So you can use a lot of meal apps nowadays where you just take a picture and it tells you roughly whether you are right or you are wrong in terms of your targets. Okay, say you had to hit at lunch 40 grams of protein within 600 calories. Okay, you take a picture, you'll probably find out whether chances are you are undershooting your protein and overshooting your calories. Yeah, why? Because your salad had that much chicken and that much crouton and olive oil. It gives you that feedback. Next time, you know what? I need to increase my protein, lower my crouton. It's not that hard, by the way. You just need to know. And tracking helps to do that.
Awesome.
Third, one meaningful change at a time. Don't try to do everything at once. Start with nailing your breakfast. If you nail your breakfast, the rest of the day will be easier. Then you move to lunch, then you move to dinner, and snacks. And quickly going through the rest, there's a lot of quick wins you can do on day 1, which is cut all the high calorie items. We've been speaking about them, and there's techniques to do that. Don't pour olive oil like crazy. Don't eat nuts. All the fatty foods, limit them or cut them. Finally, number 6 is weight yourself regularly, because we spoke about that. That's going to keep you in check. And very, very finally, don't aim for perfection. Just stay consistent. And when a day doesn't go the way it does, it's fine. don't set yourself, oh my God, I can't do this. Because 1 day or 2 days or 5 days out of 100 won't move the needle. If you stay consistent, you will lose the weight. And so putting these protocols in place makes it more likely that you'll hit those targets and therefore lose the weight.
I love it, man. Absolutely. It sounds like having goals and targets to hit can be very beneficial along that process, right? Because it kind of gives us this measurement of progress so we can keep on going and be self-aware of.
Yeah.
And you also talked about the small wins, right? It's not about being perfect at all. It's about making that progress. And you start to build that momentum, right? And you start to understand that there's what you want is actually possible, right? And you start to live from this state and you actually start to see these wins and it kind of keeps you inspired to keep on going.
Completely, because we are rational people, so to speak. We behave well to rewards. So when you set targets and you hit those targets, it makes you motivated next time. And what are the targets? Calorie targets, protein, fiber, the weight itself. And when you set those clear goals and you see that you can do it and you break it down into kind of, today I hit my target, that move motivates you tomorrow to try to do the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. So what's your take on snacking as opposed to meals? Like, is there a difference? Like, should we be doing that? What are your thoughts?
Snacking is overrated, and probably people snack too much because they don't make their core meal count.
Definitely.
That's number one. Number two, people snack I mean, we didn't talk about the psychology of it all, but of course there's the psychology, stress and stuff like that. So snacking is often an answer to that. So I've made it sound easier. I think what I've seen happen well is that even when you've got, stress and stuff like that in life, you will radically lower the chance that snacking is the answer to that, this emotional answer, if you actually are not hungry by doing these core meals. It's not going to solve it all, but it's going to massively lower the chance that you snack. So what is snack really left for is, I think, for 3 reasons. Number one, to bridge between meals. 1 snack a day, maybe 2 snacks a day. Yeah, you had your lunch at 12 o'clock, your dinner at 6:30. It's good to have a snack at 4 to just bridge the meal. And by the way, my trick personally is that when I know I've got a snack at 4, and it makes it less likely that after lunch I go and snack randomly. I'm like, no, I've got my snack coming at 4. It's a cue. So you break down the day into smaller moments of, oh, this is coming. Second reason why snack is helpful is without snack, it's quite hard to hit your protein targets. We're not going to do the math now, but you need that snack of 20 grams of protein to hit your protein target. And number 3, if you are in the workout space, right, basically strength training, snack becomes a little bit more important, to have a pre-workout and post-workout kind of carb load, but that's kind of a separate topic.
Definitely makes sense. So you also mentioned how there's so much information out there. Like there's information is available, right? And a lot of times we know what to do, but it's a matter of execution. Like why is it that we don't know how to do the things that we actually know? Or why aren't we doing the things that are required of us?
I think because there's probably quite a few reasons. Very practically, I'd say the one that applies, I think, to most people is because no structuring put in place to make that happen. Okay? Imagine in work, it's like, okay, I need to do all of these things, for my work. I need to organize X, Y, and Z. If you don't put structure in your day, this morning I'll work on this afternoon I'll work on that, chances are you won't do anything, right? You'll keep on ruminating about it, right? Why is that different for food? So when I mentioned earlier the protocol around structuring your meals, doing things, as it, treat it as work. In the beginning, it feels like work. By the way, over time, it's going to be much easier. But lack of structure, I think, is the number one reason why people are like, you know what, I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow never comes.
Exactly, yeah. So a lot of us, we have barriers of doing the things. And maybe some people in our lives, so maybe some things that we just kind of we tend to make excuses instead of make adjustments, right? There's a lot of times I find that there's lifestyle things that are getting in the way. Maybe it's certain stressors, certain things that are seemingly unrelated that are keeping them from taking action. Do you ever see that at all?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there is a whole strand of work around stage of change and are you ready to change? Many people are not ready at that moment. They've got higher order problems that they deal with, and they you can throw them all the do this, do that. It's so easy. They're like, hey, wait, I'm so far from this now. I need to deal with that issue first, right? So they're going to tell you yes, I'll do it, but really they're not ready. There's nothing you can do about that. People need to you need to catch them at a right moment, okay? So that's number one. However, assume for a moment that you're not in a very difficult stage of your life and you are in a more or less normal stage with high stress and everything, right? I'm not portraying waiting for the perfect moment neither, by the way. I think at that stage, again, it's a question of what to do and a structure around it, because otherwise you wake up going, wait, where do I start here? Like, what should I do, if that makes sense? And so having a bit of a protocol will help you. The second part that we didn't cover, of course, is it is much easier to do it when you've got the support of someone. You remember the story of my father, meaning if somebody watches over what you do, whether it's a coach or a friend or anybody you can come up with, and go like, you said you're going to do this, how did it go? Basically accountability, it will make it much more likely than you end up doing it once you get started. And by the way, accountability is not just a question of a stick, right? There's the carrot as well, meaning, wow, somebody cares about me and is curious about what I ate, or have I done what I said I'm going to do? I'm taking myself now more, also I'll take myself more seriously, and I will actually do it because that other person wants me to do it. It's very magical, this relationship you can have with someone who can support you to do certain things. It's not just the stick. It's somebody caring after you makes you want to do things for yourself as well better.
Yeah, 100%. Support is so important, right? And how do we start to get that in our lives to kind of help us along our journey?
When we survey people, at the beginning, have you got a form of social support to help you? What we found is that only about 30 to 40% of people have some form of social support. That could be from their partner, who is kind of on a health journey, or from a good friend, or, in my case, my father at the time. Most people don't. It's a very private topic as well, and it's not that hard. I think there's a little bit of an issue then in terms of getting that professional support, which is that getting a coach is expensive. It could cost you like $300 to $500 a month, to get enough sessions, like weekly sessions or whatever, let alone daily ones. So there's a real barrier. So actually, a fraction of people are actually getting, of those people who don't have natural support from their environment, a fraction of them end up getting the support professionally because it's too expensive. This is, I think, a big reason why people don't lose weight. They don't, fully know what to do, but second, don't get the support they need to keep going and stay consistent.
100%. I think something that we can be inspired by is once we go along this path and we actually achieve our goals of weight loss, then we can be a model in life for what's possible, and then we can be of support to other people, right? Because a lot of times it can be beneficial for some of those people who are of support to actually have walked that path, right? To actually know what you've gone through personally as well.
Completely. And I think a good example of that, it's a bit of a gloomy example, but in the Alcoholics Anonymous AA, learning about other people can really motivate you. The one challenge that I found when it comes to using role models is that those role models, you meet them, they inspire you to change. Okay, great, I met that person, they can do it, I want to try now. But those people then are usually not there every day. That's the problem, is that unfortunately, the battle of eating good food for the first few months, it's almost a daily battle, right? Because tomorrow you had an argument with your partner and you're angry, and what do you do about it at that point, right? If nobody's there to support you on these things, you'll end up ordering pizza. then you go like, oh my God, that was another terrible week. And then you start going in a self-destructing mode for another week or two, and then you back to where you were before. And so unfortunately, finding someone who can help you on a more granular basis is a little bit of the issue. I mean, obviously that's why I set up FitMate to provide people a little bit of that regular support, but getting that support is not easy, and it helps.
Definitely. So in terms of supplementation, is there anything that comes to mind that can actually aid in this, or is it something that could be just not as helpful as people think? Like, what are your thoughts on supplementation?
In principle, if you eat the type of food we've been talking about, when it comes to weight loss, you don't need any supplements. Any. Literally. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that, because you can get enough protein and fiber from those whole foods. Okay? When supplementation can help in well, by the way, whey powder, I don't count as a supplement. It's literally powder of whey. That's a good snack. We've been talking about that one, remember? And so that one is, not a supplement. It's kind of like just extra food. But, when we think of pills and stuff like that, I don't think you need it. Here is where they can be helpful. I've seen recently, in the last couple of years, fiber supplements, okay? And it's true that it's, in theory, possible to eat enough fiber in the day, but it's not always easy to implement it in practice. You need to think of every one of your lunches and dinner to have enough beans, grains, or a lot of green salads. And it's, you forget sometimes. And some people's jobs don't afford it, right? They don't afford it because they don't have the time to organize their meal the way they want. They need to take something. Fiber supplements, if I had to pick one, it's probably the one I would say has the most bangs for bucks.
100%. And when it comes to exercise, is there anything that comes to mind? Like, is there a certain fitness routine that would be most beneficial when it comes to weight loss?
Top of the list, strength training. And people go like, wait, why strength training? It doesn't burn, much calories compared to spinning class. So here's why. High cardio is overrated, I think. If you do it because it's fun, it boosts your mood, and for all these reasons. But for weight loss, strictly speaking, what happens with high cardio? You run for an hour, you lose 400 calories. Problem with high cardio is that it creates stress in your body that makes you hungry. So you burn 600 calories in the spinning class, and then you start eating 400 calories that you otherwise would not. Net result, 200 calories only, right? So it's a little bit overrated how much you can cardio your way out of weight loss. Let's put it like that. Strength training, on the other hand, what it does do, it builds your muscles. And building your muscle, first of all, means that you protect your lean mass as you lose weight. But second, the point you said earlier, it builds enough muscle to naturally burn calories over time. So the amount of calories you burn at rest is a bit higher, So beyond just the immediate calorie burn, you just burn more calories every day, which means you've got a bit more room to eat, basically. So strength training is by far number one. And probably number two is low intensity cardio, walking. That doesn't create the stress in terms of eating, wanting you to eat. Now, walking an hour just burns 300 calories, so not like 600 calories of spinning class, but 300 calories is quite a bit, like you do that every day, that's almost half a pound by itself lost.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Alon, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your story with us and all your amazing weight loss information, right? Because this can be very difficult for people, and unfortunately, this is something that many people are dealing with in some way or another, and it can be very confusing to navigate, right? So having these things and protocols that we can actually follow and implement in our own lives is so valuable. So again, I appreciate you so much, man. And if people want to get connected with you and all your work, where can we find you?
Fitmatecoach.com.
Awesome.
I've written a lot of blogs there where we talk about all of these topics.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care, Anthony.